The Guardian is reporting on some fundamentalist religious nonsense coming out of North London. They say, quote, leaders of an ultra-Orthodox Jewish sect have said children who are driven to school by their mothers will be turned away at the school gates. Rabbis from the marginal Hasidic sect Belz have told women in Stamford Hill who drive that they go against the traditional rules of modesty. In a letter sent to parents last week, seen by the Jewish Chronicle, they say there has been an increase in the number of mothers driving their children to school and add that this has led to great resentment among parents of pupils of our Hasidic institutions. So let's understand this. The women were driving the kids to school, and then you have ultra-Orthodox men who witnessed this, and they were outraged. They said, "Oh, you have offended my better sensibilities and my higher morality, and now we are banning women driving their kids to school." Now, again, what I want to stress in this story is that, understand, guys, the ultra-Orthodox men who are saying to the women, okay, now you're not allowed to do this anymore, they think they are more moral than you. They think they are more moral than these women who are violating God's law. They think they have the one truth here. And that's the thing, to go back to the same talking points I've been hitting in the previous stories, that's the thing that's so scary about religion, is that if you actually believe, in this case, the Torah, but if you believe any holy book, whether it's the Quran or the Bible or the Bhagavad Gita or whatever book, right? Well, then it doesn't become so irrational to take some of the stupid, backwards, draconian, archaic laws in there and say, no, I'm just following what God said. I know I'm right because God said it. And look, this goes back to a point that new atheists make all the time, which is that people are only good religious people or moderate religious people insofar as they're blowing off many parts of their religion. Now, I get it, and I'm the first to argue that you really can find very, very good things and very bad things in all the holy books. But that's why it's so scary, is that it's not like the people who are arguing for the good interpretation are right, any more than the people arguing for the really conservative, bad, immoral interpretations are right. So you're just having a battle of dueling cherry pickers. I'll pick the good parts, you pick the negative parts, and then I'll say I'm right and you say you're right. But nobody wins that argument, because both the good and the bad are in the holy book. And in this case, dealing with fundamentalists, and this goes for fundamentalist Muslims, fundamentalist Christians, and fundamentalist Jews, ultra-Orthodox Jews, there are people who believe it, and then they argue for it, and they're so convinced that they're right that they think you're the crazy one if you're not on board with it. We just did the story, very similar story of the guy from Pakistan who blamed earthquakes and inflation on women wearing jeans. He went as far as to say, you can't be mad at the Taliban, they're just following God. You have to be mad at the women who are provoking God, making God mad, and giving us earthquakes because they're showing their lovely lady lumps. So this is what the Muslims think, the Christians think very similarly as well, and the ultra-Orthodox Jews think it. And what drives me crazy is that some people think that in the name of tolerance, we have to say, well, they're just living differently, so we got to let them live differently and tolerate that. No. There's a difference between tolerance and tolerating intolerance. Don't be an idiot relativist, right? A real moral relativist who's like, well, they're just doing it different, and you can't pass any moral judgment. It's just different. No. You can pass judgment. You absolutely can pass judgment. Because what you're standing up against is bigotry. What you're standing up against is sexism. What you're standing up against is religious dogmatism. You shouldn't pull punches because it might be a group that, you don't belong to and you view them as like a minority or something like that. And oftentimes you see this from liberals, for example, when it comes to criticizing fundamentalist Muslims. They take the fear of being viewed as an Islamophobe, right? And they take a real concern of, being bigoted towards Muslims and real Muslim persecution, which does exist. They take fear of those things and they extrapolate it too far, where they say, well, any criticism then of Muslims is the same as Islamophobia and you're a bigot. No, but it's not bigoted to say that the guy who's against women wearing pants, that he's wrong and he shouldn't be on that side, and we disagree with him, and we should win that argument, and we should win in the political realm against that kind of thinking. Same thing goes for ultra-Orthodox Jews here. They're like, we don't want women to drive. I don't give a fuck if you don't want women to drive. Nobody gives a fuck what you think, right? If I came to you and said, I don't want you to drive, would you accept it? They'd be like, that's outrageous. Why should I listen to you? Exactly! You shouldn't listen to me if I tell you you shouldn't drive. By the same token, the women you're married to shouldn't listen to you if you say it's your opinion based on your interpretation of your book that they shouldn't drive. I'm so tired of this religious nonsense, man. Stop looking at old desert texts that are primitive and dumb and not factual and basing your life on it. I've said this before to people. If I gave you a blank sheet of paper and a pen and said, here, write down the 10 rules that are most important that one should live by in their life. And as long as I'm giving the piece of paper and a pen to somebody who's over the age of about 25, I guarantee you that list that person makes is going to have much more wisdom in it than any of the holy books. Because with the holy books, there's always good and bad. I can guarantee you there's not going to be slavery. There's not going to be making your father get drunk and then you rape him in the list that I give any person a right today. Well, there is slavery in the Bible. There is slavery in the Quran. There is having, raping your father after you get him drunk in the Bible. There's all types of negative shit. So why would you believe it? And why would you live your life based on it? It's because of indoctrination. And it's because you were told it's right when they presented no evidence to you. And a lot of good people fall into the trap of thinking, well, this is what my mom and dad believed, and they're good people, so when they tell me it, yes, I'm going to call myself a Catholic, or I'm going to call myself a Muslim, or I'm going to call myself a Protestant, or I'll call myself a Jew, because I was born into it. But it's almost like you're allowing yourself to be absurd in this area. What is it? You got to think, what does it mean to be a Jew or a Christian or a Muslim or any of that stuff? What does it mean to be that? Well, in its purest sense, what it means is you're a part of this club. You're a part of this group which believes in this book, and this book is the Word of God. But none of that is true. So why would you say, I'm part of that? Be objective. Don't be afraid to use your mind. Don't be afraid to look at it and say, why would I want to be part of this group? Okay, so my parents were good people. Doesn't mean they were right about everything. Doesn't mean they were right about the biggest existential questions. Doesn't mean they were right to be part of a group, in the case of Catholicism, for example, where the leaders were engaged in a mass child fucking scandal. No, use your mind. Leave the religion. You don't need the religion, but most importantly, the religion isn't true. And sometimes it leads to stuff like this. And they argue that you can't disagree with them because their rules are coming from God, so you can't tell me that I can't force women not to drive because God says I can do that. No. God doesn't say that. You think God is saying that, but that your religious belief should have no effect whatsoever on how we create secular laws in any kind of rational society.